Cool. So, just had a bit of pre-discussion with a few people. So thanks everyone jumping, or a few people that jumped on early. Always nice to have a bit of a chat. But let's kickstart the July 2025 session for the Power BI and Data Analytics for Enviros. So again, usually people on this call, some people have been on multiple previous sessions, some people are new. If you are new, our mission around presenting these sessions are really about sharing case studies, allowing people to learn new tips and tricks, and also like meeting other people in the Power BI and Fabric based community, and really focused around environmental and water based data sets. So empowering environmental professionals, environmental consultants, people that work government agencies, academia, etc. Anyone sort of touching environmental based data and using Power BI. This is the sort of space that we work in and operate, and hopefully you can get a lot from in these sessions. So just general housekeeping. As respect to the presenter today being Alice, please just mute yourself, as it looks like most people have done, which is great. I'll be moderating the chat throughout the session, so feel free to type any questions you have. Alice will also sort of stop at different times, at which point you can come off mute and yeah, just ask your questions directly. Where for those people new, we're relatively like informal in terms of like we want to try and get the engagement up as much as possible during these sessions. So don't be shy to come off mute if the time is right for a question. I've turned on the recording for this session, so we'll make it available via the different forums afterwards, and you can zoom into any small content that you're seeing on the share screens by holding control and scrolling in on your mouse if you are unfamiliar with that approach. So just an acknowledgement of country is, we'd like to acknowledge the Bibbulmun peoples, the traditional owners of the land from which we're dialing in. So Alice and myself, based in Perth, Western Australia. See one of the photos there overlooking the Derbarl Yerrigan, or also known as the Swan River. Pretty close to home to where we live. It's a beautiful part of the world, so we're very privileged, and we just like to pay our respects to the Whadjuk people, their elders, both past and present, and also extend that acknowledgement to the traditional owners from the lands that you're dialing in from, whether it be within Australia, anywhere, but also globally as well to the Indigenous people from which your lands that you're dialing in from. Alice and I sort of co-founded Discovery Eye amazingly over 6 years ago now. Time flies, but this is the sort of space that we work in. We sort of put on the meetups and look to try and continue to engage with the wider community in this environmental and Power BI space. Even though our meetup membership is up to like nearly 3,000 members, it's still quite a niche area that is focused around environmental and water and Power BI. It's obviously growing and has grown considerably over the past 5 years plus. And we, if you've seen the LinkedIn and Twitter feeds, you might have seen all these Power BI 10-year celebrations in recent times. So the tool in general has grown and continues to get integrated more and more with the other tools that we all use in our day-to-day world. But this is the sort of area that we work in. If you have any sort of burning questions in this space. On to today's session. And as Alice touched on, unfortunately, our client representative from DQ, which is the New South Wales state government, is sick and unable to dial in. That was David. He was going to present just briefly or more on the context around the study from an environmental perspective. So looking at the ecological indicators, how we're visualizing the outputs from different rounds of modeling coming out, and really the purpose and use for the dashboard, both internally but also externally, as it is a public-facing tool, as you might have seen looking at the previous material shared through the meetup page. But what we're going to dive deep into in this session is really some of the behind the scenes of the Power BI report, as flagged in the session summary, which I'll go over in a moment. But we'll also take it to the level of what you need to be focusing on if your goal is to build a Power BI report for the public. So internal use versus public-based presentation for the community requires a few different elements and features that we would recommend. And so Alice will take you through a few of those and how we've approached them in this particular study. So in this session, we'll talk about this biodiversity indicator program Power BI report, mainly, like I said, focus on the Power BI side of things, but Alice will give a brief intro as to the study. So from an environmental perspective, briefly, the tool reports on the state and trends of biodiversity and ecological integrity across key areas and key different spatial regions across New South Wales. From a Power BI perspective, this is just a brief summary of some of the techniques that it uses that you might have seen. So elements such as dynamic titles, dynamic text, some key metrics, a bit of a focus on mapping and how we're tapping into the New South Wales web mapping service, if that's something that is of interest. Clever use of conditional formatting. And like I said, really some of these elements of what you should be looking at from a public facing tool perspective, if that's something you need to do. Just a bit about Alice. She's Director of Environmental Analytics with us, or with myself at Discovery Eye. Former Microsoft MVP. Probably interesting. Probably a bit strange for you, Alice, saying former, given you sort of relinquished it in July, it's just past of this year, just with other stuff going on in life and in terms of the focus and your ability to sort of commit to the community to a degree. But I know you've still got that passion in terms of presenting and sharing your wealth of knowledge, really around Power BI with design, looking at environmental data. So Alice draws on her background in environmental engineering. She's worked collaboratively with a whole range of different government organisations, including spearheading the development of this dashboard, working with the Biodiversity Indicator Program team within DQ. So I think without further ado, Alice, I'll stop sharing if you wanted to take over and go from here.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, Christian, for the introduction. I'll just start sharing my screen. There we go. So as Christian mentioned, just go back a slide here. We did have a session. We did say maybe it will be intermediate to advanced. Probably it's a good generalist one. I'm happy to take any questions. There are some quite advanced kind of mapping things that we explored on this study. So if there's any interest there, I'll open it up for questions. But I think it also has a lot of really interesting techniques that we used, which would be interesting to a broader range of people around creating Power BI reports for the public. So we've presented quite a few times at this group, showcasing Power BI reports that we have created for the public, because they're really good at, often it's really tricky to share client-sensitive examples and case studies, and these tend to be really interesting ones using publicly available information. But if you're wondering why would you want to create a Power BI report for the public, because largely Power BI is used as an internal data exploration and analysis tool inside of organizations. We find they're really good ways to complement a written report. So written reports can be quite lengthy and static, and Power BI gives you a way to interact with the data. It can also help automate your reporting. So if you create a written static snapshot report, maybe you can only publish it every 1 or 5 years. Power BI, you could constantly update it as your data updates. It can make the data a lot more interactive so that all of your end users, based on what they're interested in, they can zoom in and filter the data for that. So we'll see that in this example. It helps you engage with the community, and there's a lot more other reasons why you might want to create a report for the public. A couple of lessons that we've learnt from creating we've worked on a lot of studies creating Power BI reports for the public. Have I selected the right option? Should we be creating a public report? Is my data public? There's 2 main options we'll have a look at, or we'll chat through on the next slide. Have I tested visuals on all browsers? Am I applying my corporate branding and styles? Can non-technical audiences understand my report? That's a really big one. So we'll point out lots of techniques in this report to help non-technical audiences understand this very technical information. Is my report intuitive to navigate? So that's especially important because as Power BI developers, we know the ins and outs of how to navigate and interact with our reports. But if you're sharing it with the general public, they might not even know how to filter data using slices, or that there's extra information on hover over certain visuals. And have I incorporated accessibility into design to make the report accessible for all users? Some bonus questions. Have I considered report performance? So we'll have a look at that in this report. We can see we've got some quite detailed spatial data. So that is a little bit of an issue. Mobile responsiveness, security, managing embed codes. There's a lot of different things to consider when creating reports for the public. Just quickly, there are two kind of key options we can have a look at when you're creating a report for the public. You can use Power BI embedded or Power BI published to web. Where we've used Power BI published to web for this study, to be honest, we've only ever worked in Power BI published to web. So the clients that we work with, that tends to be a really good option for them. They don't need any extra security. They're not trying to create a Power BI report where it's not kind of branded Power BI, or they're mixing different visuals with other kind of apps or software or things like that. And that works really well. It has really, all you need is a Power BI Pro license to publish, and the link is very easy to create and maintain. So just be 100% sure, if you're going down this path, that if you create a Power BI report and you use publish to web, that your report is public, because it's not a workaround for sharing with external people who don't have a Power BI license, because it is potentially discoverable. Also, check with your Power BI administrator that your organization allows publish to web, and most organizations lock down the ability to create a Power BI publish to web link to only a very small select number of users. So if you did want to go down this path, we'd recommend reaching out to your Power BI administrators at the very beginning of your project to make sure that it's an option. So this just shows that the Power BI administrators can turn it off, or they could just enable it for specific users as well. To create a Power BI embed code, it's really straightforward. You create your report as normal, you publish it up to your webs, to the online Power BI online service in your workspace, and then you can just go File. I think there's a Publish to Web button. Yeah, File, Embed Report, Publish to Web, Public, and then you can literally copy the link, or you can embed it in a website as an iframe. So it's that easy once you've got your report created, and you can manage your embed codes as well. So if you accidentally created one, you can go and delete that embed code. It removes it from the system. Yeah, it's a really nice, easy solution. It does have some limitations, but in most cases that we've worked with, it works pretty well. Just remember to test with browser testing. Some visuals aren't supported in Power BI Publish to Web, so it's not the same as the Power BI online service. So some of your visuals might not render. So always good to check. But one thing to note for all the mapping fans out there, Azure Map is now available in Publish to Web scenarios. So that's really good. Okay, so that was a quick overview of the solution that we've used. We went down the Power BI Publish to Web route, and we've got a lot of different tips for communicating complex data to the general public. But what I might do first, before we get into these, is walk through the dashboard so that we've got an understanding of what this Power BI dashboard is. And once we've done a little bit of a walkthrough of the different pages, then we'll come back and we'll unpack each of these design tips and go through and have a look at the techniques specifically implemented in the dashboard. And at each of these stages, there's lots of opportunity for questions. So just bring it up here and I'll share a link if people did want to go through it. So this Power BI report, it's embedded in the Seed Hub. So this is the New South Wales government kind of portal for lots of data and dashboards. So I'll copy this one into the chat. So it's embedded here. If you wanted to have a look at it in full screen mode, you can just open in a new window. And I might just read the program overview here from the home page. It gives us a little bit of a snapshot around what this dashboard is. So this is the Biodiversity Indicator Program dashboard. And it's presenting information from the Habitat Condition Indicator family. So the Biodiversity Indicator Program reports on the state and trends of biodiversity and ecological integrity in New South Wales. So they've developed a framework of indicators to help scientists, managers, and policymakers understand the current state of biodiversity and then how it's likely to change in the future. So this dashboard presents the results of 2 indicators in the Habitat Condition Indicator family. So it presents ecological condition of the terrestrial habitat and ecological carrying capacity of the terrestrial habitat report on the ability of the habitat to support native species and ecosystems. So there's more information here on the Biodiversity Indicator program if anyone was interested. But we can go and explore the data. Let's get into it and have a look. So within this dashboard, we've got 3 key pages. We've got data overview, explore the detail, and data insights. And then we have the home page to give a bit of overview, and learn more, which contains a glossary. So really, this dashboard's presenting information about the ecological carrying capacity and the ecological condition from at 4 different snapshots in time. So there were 4 different kind of modeling surveys which have been completed. So we've got all of this spatial data we'll see in a minute at 4 snapshots in time at 2007, 2013, 2017, and 2020. So this dashboard, really the purpose of it is to explore the data at all of these different spatial regions that you might be interested in, whether it's at like the whole state scale at New South Wales or at the interim bioregion scale, the local government area scale, local land service scale, or the state vegetation formation, so by filtering by different vegetations, and having a look at how the ecological carrying capacity and ecological condition vary across space and time. So it's a lot of quite detailed and specific information to present to the general public. So we'll unpack some of the techniques that we've used to try to make this information a bit more digestible. But this data overview page allows you to select what scale you want to have a look at the data at. We can have a look at the LGA scale, and you can see this map changes. We can hover over each of these regions, and then we can see a breakdown of how these indicators have changed over time. We can also see it here, comparing the different scales for each of these modeling snapshots. And we can have a look at a bit more about what this data actually means. So ecological condition serves as a barometer, gauging the quality of terrestrial habitat at each location by assessing its intactness and natural state. So meanwhile, ecological carrying capacity extends this evaluation to consider the additional impact of the surrounding habitat loss and fragmentation extent. Fragmentation exert on the species' ability to navigate the landscape. So the carrying capacity takes into consideration how connected it is, how can things kind of move across and thrive. So ecological carrying capacity value signifies the quality of terrestrial habitats that persist relative to its original 100% intact state. So throughout the dashboard, we've got a lot of opportunity for users to go in and hover and get a little bit more information about these specific definitions and about what all of this information here means. So that's the data overview page where people can just filter in and have a look at different scales. If we have a look at explore the detail, go to the next page here. This allows us to zoom in and have a look at the data in a little bit more detail. So we could select a region of interest. So here we're having a look at the interim bioregion, the Australian Alps. We can select a model year. Maybe we'll select 2017 and select an indicator, whether it's ecological condition or ecological carrying capacity. And we can see that when we change these selections, then the data updates. So we can see in plain English a description of what we are presenting on this page. We can have a look at the model distribution map. So here we can see the average and the range. But if we wanted to have a look at what did the actual modeling look like over this region, because it can be quite different depending on your region, we can have a look at the spatial distribution. So these are the actual modeling outputs here for that region. Can have a look at a bit more detail if we're wanting to have a look at a specific range. We can see that this chart here, just the bands update to allow us to interpret it a bit more, but then the dynamic text updates as well. So there's a lot of information on this page if you were interested in one specific region and modeling year. And then the data insights allow us to explore in a bit more detail and compare either different regions or different timescales. So we can have a look at the summary chart here. In the tabulated data, this is where we can see how the results change over time. So we can see if we're having a look at ecological condition for one of the regions, one of the forest formations, we could see just how that has changed over time. So between 2007 to 2013, it's gone down a bit, then it's gone back up, and then it's remained the same. So we're using a lot of conditional formatting here to really help the public audience understand what is this data being presented and what are really the key takeaways, because as you can see, it is quite detailed. Again, we can filter on any of these different scales as well. And the spatial distribution page, this allows us to really compare the same region, but for either different indicators or at different time scales. So if we wanted to see how has the Australian Alps changed for ecological condition from 2007 to 2020, then we can have a look and we can see that in 2020, we've got a lot more of this percent remaining over here compared to around here. So these are really useful as well. On the Learn More, we've got a glossary, which is really helpful for these public tools, just to make sure that users can interpret the data and they're not questioning what do these key terms mean. So that's a little bit of a walkthrough of the Power BI report. So I'd encourage everyone to go and have a play around with it. I'll just have a look.
Yeah, I was going to jump in, Alice. We did have one question about sort of map presentation and what we've gone through. So it was a question mentioned as a rookie question. Nothing in Power BI mapping is a rookie question. It's actually more challenging largely than what it should be. But how do you get and feed suburb data into the map visuals? So I sort of replied and said options for point-based representation via postcodes or latitude longitudes if you've got point-based data. Otherwise, we've got the more detailed maps here through underlying shape files and also the New South Wales web mapping service. Was there anything extra you thought worth mentioning regarding mapping in this report?
Yeah, so I think for this report, I'll just go into the Power BI desktop file now, because that's where we're going to have a look. We used the mapping visual icon map. So icon map is a custom visual. We use the free version because this report we created it, I think, 2 years ago now. And it took a long time just to get it up on the website. I think just going through approvals and things like that. So we've used icon map, the free version. That one doesn't have any, the free version doesn't have geocoding, so you can't just drag in suburb. I think the other maps like Azure Map, this one here, and the ArcGIS map, that allows you to bring a location field in. And if you bring location, I think you can do, definitely do country, state, postcode. I'm not too sure about suburbs outside of America. You would have to have a look at the geocoding, how it picks it up, and what fields you can actually, you can use. There'd be a lot of information if you just type in Azure Map for Power BI. There's lots of information there. I'd recommend using Azure Map. That's where Power BI is investing lots of their effort and capability, and it's just getting, it's just getting better and better lately. Just have a look. Oh, it depends on it. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So hopefully that helps. Is it possible to share the PBIX file? Unfortunately, we can't share the PBIX file because this is created for a client. So it's the New South Wales government's property, but you can interact with the public version, the public dashboard to have a look, but not the PBIX file, unfortunately. Amazing. Okay, well, I might just jump into it. If anyone had questions as we're going through, type them in the chat or feel free to go off mute or put your hand up and we'll answer them as we go. Just one more question. I noticed you use lots of nice icons, so we'll cover up on that. Do you create these on your own or from any websites? So we get our icons from Flaticons, and we've got a paid subscription so that we can use them on our studies, and it's really good. I'd recommend it. You can get a lot with the free version. You just have to make sure that you attribute it all. And they've got a whole ton of different icons there. So there's lots of different icon websites, but that's just the one that we use. It's really easy. You can get PNG or SVGs and things like that.
Just further to that, sorry, Alice. For this particular report, I don't know if Alice showed at the start, there's a complementing sort of PDF report that the New South Wales government used. So we were provided access to lots of those icons to have that level of consistency in relation to different indicators and themes and the way that the data is presented, as Alice is showing here. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And that's probably the first one we'll touch on is branding. So if you're creating a Power BI report for the public, we'd always recommend aligning your report to the corporate brand to promote trust and familiarity. And with this Power BI report, it was built for the Biodiversity Indicator program. And as we flick through, this is the latest Outlook report, we can see that there's lots of different families of indicators and they've all got a different type of color and icon. So we were under the habitat condition, and you can see that on the pages, we're using this like red browny color as our dominant theme color, that color with gray. And we've also got consistent kind of headers in it if we have a look at this page here. So we're really trying to create a report that complements that written report. And when users see this report and maybe they're looking at the physical outlook report as well, it just promotes that extra layer of trust and familiarity, and people can recognize different things. So these icons here for ecological carrying capacity and ecological condition, I think that they did come from the pack which the client gave us so that they were consistent with what was used in all their other reports as well. So that's one thing to be mindful of, just the branding. Another thing to think about is navigation. So you want intuitive navigation between pages, on pages, but also a really key one is data resets, especially when you're creating reports for the public. So you can see here that between each page, we're using the Power BI page navigator. So this is a really nice way of easily navigating between different pages. If you add a new page into the report, this is automatically added into your page navigator here. So it's so easy to maintain and update. So that's what we're using on each page to navigate between pages. And on the pages, we're also using different techniques. So on the data overview, we're using here a button slicer, but it looks a bit like a button. So here we can have users can select a scale here, and it's really obvious for them what they selected. They've got like a bit of a button experience here. But on other pages, this one I don't think we have any, but the data insights, we definitely got similar navigation. So once the users learn how to navigate the dashboard on one page, a tip would be to have very similar navigation across all pages. So we typically have slices at the top, page navigation down the left, and then sub-page navigation across the top as well. There's just a few questions here. Is the LGA shown on the map as well? And what map do you use them for? Is the LGA shown on the map? Well, we've got LGA regions on this map. With icon map, we're actually bringing in customized polygon, like our own specific regions as WKT files. So these ones we're not getting, like it's not geocoded or anything. These are specific. So all of these regions are brought into Power BI as WKT, and we're displaying it interactively on the map. And the purpose of having all these different types of regions is that some users might be really interested in just an LGA region, maybe for Albury City, and that's just what they're interested in, and they want to filter the dashboard just to see the results at that scale. And other people might be interested in just one of these interim bioregion scales and things like that. That's why we've got all these different spatial scales to filter the data so that we can have a look at the results that way. So that's my second tip. Third tip is to include instructions to communicate how to use the dashboard. So this is really important for public dashboards. We've done this in a few ways. If you've seen some of our other dashboards, you can see that we typically have embedded like a how to navigate video. And that's a really good option because it shows users how to navigate it. There's no kind of questions about it, but that's really cumbersome to update and maintain. Whenever you change the dashboard, you have to change the video. And there's no guarantee that people will watch that video. They might just jump in and think, I know how to navigate this, but they might miss out on half of the features. So for this dashboard, what we've actually done is on lots of the visuals, we've got these on hover info kind of boxes. So this pops up and it gives us information about what is this map presenting. So people can read that. And then the question mark, wherever you see a question mark, that tells us how to actually navigate it. So it says select area of interest from the drop down and map will automatically zoom to selected region. To remove selection, either uncheck current state or select all. Hover over the map region, you can see a pop-up for further information. So this provides users instructions in context. And what we're using here, we'll just have a look because this is a bit of a different technique. We're actually using a button here. So typically with buttons in Power BI, you'd use buttons to click on it to enact an action. So like this one's a button to reset page, and this button here is probably linked up to a bookmark. Yeah, to reset the page. Whereas these buttons here are linked to nothing. But what we're using it for is to have a dynamic tooltip. So this tooltip text changes. So these instructions are fed from, I think, just an external spreadsheet, and we're just updating it based on the location and everything of where it is. And it gives a really nice effect for users for a public website because we've got this on hover. So when you hover, then it shows something's changed. So that's a really nice option to have. Inline instructions, and we've also got instructions throughout the dashboard. So select a region below to filter results, select area of interest, hover here, things like that. And we're including a lot of extra information about what the data means as well, because this is a public tool. We can't guarantee that people know what ecological condition and carrying capacity actually mean. So that's another big tip. I'll just check for any other questions.
So we did have a few. Just a question. So I think the LGA one you addressed or answered. Page navigation. So the page navigator does force us to sort of size down the other visuals, but our experience is usually it's a nice intuitive way for the public to be able to sort of get that turn page effect. Do you have anything to add regarding the page navigator?
So I guess page navigator I wouldn't typically use on an internal dashboard because it does take up your real estate. But if we have a look at it in a public dashboard, when you use Power BI Publish to Web, it's a different navigation experience to what you'd be used to in the Power BI online service, where you've got like a list of all of your pages down the left-hand side. When you do Publish to Web, the only page navigator we have is along the bottom, and users could miss that. So if we don't, they would have to go like this or click here and then find your page in this list. So it's not, you just don't want to risk users missing that to not be able to navigate between pages. And also this takes up a lot of space here. And you can see we do have a lot of info. You can make it a lot smaller, maybe doing it across the top or putting it in the header if you're concerned about real estate. But for this one, I think it was fine down there. But yeah, it just depends on how much you're trying to present and where it best fits. But if you're doing a publish to web one, I'd probably recommend having a page navigator just because this is a bit hidden.
Really, really good question though. Another question just regarding the Learn More page. Is the data source from SharePoint or created internally within PBIX via a table?
Yeah, it's a great question. This is just from the data source for this entire Power BI file is just CSVs and Excel files saved on SharePoint. So this table would be coming from a table range in Excel, where it would just be a list of the term and definition. So that's really easy to maintain and update.
Lots of good questions. Another one, how did you add the scroll in the middle of the ecological carrying capacity chart? Curious to know how the chart and regions scroll in sync.
Yeah, let's have a look. So that would be this one here. How we could go like this. How the chart and regions. Yeah, so this one, if we go back to the dashboard here, this is just a standard stacked bar chart. But what we've got is we've got small multiples. So that's how it gets, if we take out, just double check where this data is coming from. It's a very complicated model, this one, because we had a lot of data coming in from years. So if we take this one out, then it's just a normal stacked bar chart here with the scroll. But if you add your small multiples in, what that does is it splits it up. We've got 4 years here, so you've got a double scroll. So here, and then I think it's just nice. It scrolls in sync. Just because it's sharing that y-axis. So that y-axis is consistent. I think it's just a nice native feature of Power BI if you're using small multiples and there's a scroll.
And maybe just one more question, because it's a really good one from Pat. Thanks, Pat. Was there any concern from the client about the use of icon map free version, given it is now unsupported? This is a really good point. But yeah, if you want to elaborate on that and then maybe jump into the rest of the session afterwards.
Oh, yeah, no. I think prioritize questions. The others are just tips. So that's a really good point. When we were creating this Power BI report, there was only the free version of icon map. And so it wasn't a concern, not an issue raised with the client. I think at this stage, they've released the paid version, and now the free version is unfortunately unsupported. It still renders, it still works. I think at this stage, they'll use it until it doesn't work. Maybe if they're having a look at incorporating the latest round of modeling, then we'll review that option and see what other options could potentially be available. It is a shame because Icon Map is really good and we're using some of its more advanced features like the web mapping service option to dynamically change the backgrounds. So we might have to explore using the paid version and what that would look like in a publish to web scenario, because paid version typically is per user. Every user needs a license, but I think James Dales has an option available for if you did want to create a public report using that one. So it might be something to consider. So that is something for everyone to be aware of now. Unfortunately, the icon map, the free version, is unsupported because they have such a good paid version that they've released. So the free version isn't available on AppSource anymore. Would they consider shifting to Azure Map now with the new features? Yeah, potentially, because Azure Map now has reference layers which are interactive so that they can zoom. When they first incorporated the reference layers, you could have these reference layers. So these would be our reference layers. But if we did want to filter on one of them, it wouldn't zoom to that region. So it was really a limiting feature. We'll have to investigate and just see how we could get the web mapping service incorporated. I haven't explored that in Azure Map. I'm not sure, Pat, if you've had a look at that. But what they've got is here we want the ability to show this detailed raster. And this raster changes based on what modeling year and what indicator you've got selected. And the way we've done this with the icon map, the free version, is we can dynamically link the web map service URL and layer name. So it's dynamically data driven based on what we've got selected here. And that link just updates. It's really quick, a really neat solution. So we would have to have a look at how that would work with the Azure map. I'm not too sure. We've got a question. Yeah, the Icon Map Pro product is so good. Yeah. Yeah. We got a question. Did you want to go off mute? Is it Yongmai? Apologies for my pronunciation.
Yes, that's me. Great report, by the way. Thank you for sharing. I have a question about sharing it to the public. So, is this one embedded?
Yeah, so this is using Power BI publish to web. So not
Published
embedded.
to web.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, I'm not sure. Like, in the one of the first slides that you shared, so there are two options to share it with the public. So the first one is embedded, and the second one is published to web. So, can you tell me about the differences and why you chose this one?
Yeah, so the differences are, so Power BI embedded, and forgive me for anyone, I haven't actually used embedded, so this is my understanding of what it is. It allows you to create a Power BI report and embed it in a potentially secure website or portal managed using your Azure Active Directory. It has additional licenses and fees associated with it. At the time when we were investigating for this study, the extra cost would be in the order of about, I think it was about $10,000 per year for the organization if they didn't have an existing embedded capacity. So it's a capacity thing. So it is, it's really tailored for organizations who want to, say you create a Power BI report which has maybe sales or healthcare user information, which is quite sensitive, and you want to share it to all of your customers, but you don't want all your customers to see that information. You need to have a way of managing their log on, like their user login, and they might not be part of your organization, and to have it present just their data very securely. So it's kind of that semi-public. So it's got that extra layer of security there, and you're managing it via your Azure Active Directory with all of these extra things. And embedded is really cool. It allows you to pick and choose little visuals from Power BI, and you could embed just this Power BI map alongside, I don't know, like a Vega visual or another one to create like almost like a web app experience. Whereas Power BI published to web, you're publishing a report. You can't take out the Power BI branding. People know it's Power BI and things like that. But Power BI published to web is very easy and almost free. If you have a Power BI Pro license, it's free. So there's probably I'd recommend looking it up online. It changes all the time, especially with all the advancements with Fabric and things like that. And if your organization already has embedded capacity, then adding an extra dashboard, I think that's easy, almost free. So it's probably worth exploring.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries at all.
So I have a question.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Sorry, I was just reading some of the questions.
Excuse my ignorance, but I'm just getting back into Power BI, and I'm working on an internal report, and I'm using these standard slicers, and I'm looking for something a little better, and yours are really neat. Are you using the standard slicer when you hover over ecological carrying capacity there? Can you show me what you're using? Is that a standard slicer? It is highlighting the standard slice.
So it is the standard slicer, and there are new slicers now. It's so confusing. Button slicer, text slicer, list slicer. This one is the standard slicer, and we've got, it's just about how you change the options. So this is a drop down, and we've got single select, which turns on that radio selector button. And you can change, if you wanted to change the background color, then you just go and change background. You can do some formatting to it as well.
Okay, so you just got it hidden, so there's no border showing, and you've got the background. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. This slicer here is actually I'll just click on it. It's part of a group. This one is the button slicer. So the button slicer operates how the traditional slicer works if you were to select a tile. So if we select tile, it's kind of very similar to how that slicer works, except it gives you so many more formatting options. So it almost acts like a button where you can do on hover effects, select, lots and lots of different formatting options.
Okay.
So that's a good one. The other ones, button slicer, text slicer is good. So you could search if we wanted to, it just filters based on your text that you've put in. So
is that with the newer versions?
Yeah, these are new ones. So you may, I'm not sure, you may have to enable it in your preview features. I think the slicers just came automatically to everyone, but you might.
Yeah,
It's
some
any
companies
ones with the
they don't they're really
they don't let you.
behind times. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your help.
Yeah, no worries. I think list slicers is good. It lets you have lots of images in there as well. I haven't really used those ones yet, but there's lots to have a look at.
I think Pat's also made a good comment regarding the licensing of Power BI Embedded as well, and how it's now been sort of pushed in terms of the functionality of it into the Fabric model. So that's an important consideration as well. There were a few other questions, Alice. I'm just conscious of the 7 minutes remaining in the scheduled time, and maybe we focus on the questions.
Yeah.
So Alex asked a question. He likes how in the time bar chart you have columns of years with no data model. Is that a Power BI feature to show years with no data in between, or is it dummy data? How did you guys sort of get that look and feel?
These ones, hey?
I think so. Yeah.
So let's have a look. Yeah, this was a little bit of mucking around. What we have is 4 years of modeled data. That's this one, this one, this one, and this one. In between, what the client wanted to do was to interpolate this data. That's not a native feature of Power BI. What we did was we did it in Power Query. So we've got this year, and then you can do a subtraction of how many years and what is the difference between this and this for the lowest grain. And then we interpolated that data kind of not manually, it's automated in Power Query, but we had to write out all of the steps. So we did that in Power Query. And then what we got was we got this table here of our modeled versus interpolated data. And so we created that, and then we just did some different formatting on these. So if we have a look at the columns, and it was manual. Yes, we had to go through and change each of the color to say if it's interpolated, it's a lighter color. If it's not, then it's a darker color. So it's a bit of hacking our way through it, but hopefully that helps. And these type of things, as you would see, it's a lot of formatting and things like that. You wouldn't tend to do that for an internal report, but because it is a public report and they want it to look and feel a certain way, then we do go above and beyond with all of the crazy formatting things you can do in Power BI. But if you're doing it for internal, think long and hard about, is this worth the maintenance effort?
Another question just around, was it particularly difficult to build relationships between the many tables? So in terms of data model structure and how that came about?
Yeah. We tried to be organized. So you can see we've got lots of supporting tables. So we tried to be organized with how we would label things so that it's very obvious. When you name a table, you can see in Power BI, it does group it alphabetically in our tables here. So we have a ton of supporting things. You can see that it is a bit of a messy-ish looking a data model, just the nature of it. But when we break it down into all of the different scales, you can see that it is a nice star schema. We did have to have a few complex inactive relationships, just the way that they were all linked, but you can see that it's a very simple data model. It's just we have these different ways we wanted to present the information at different grains. So we did have to split it all out and then just make sure that our dimensions all related to everything so that we could have those consistent slices. Yeah.
And those many-to-many relationships don't cause you problems with the KPIs?
No, these were really just to allow us to get the slicing capability from the map and the slicer. So we did have a look. These are kind of like just bridging tables, just to allow us slicing in both directions. But no, we did investigate that. They're just for slicing.
Okay.
But yeah, always be very, very wary of many-to-many relationships. They can cause you a lot of problems and discrepancies. But you can see we just have them on the spatial tables. Just because there were lots of different grains, we had a lot of spatial data. Users wanted the ability to filter the data by the slices and the maps and have it all interact the way you would expect. Yeah, so just a couple of last tips. I won't go into it very much, but think about customizing. So present data in a familiar way by customizing the visuals. So we've spoken a lot about that, how users, for creating public reports, I find that visual design and the look and feel kind of trumps the maintenance. Just because it's used by such a wide range of audiences. So when we were building these visuals, we were trying really hard to align it with the existing hard copy reports, which did have quite specific visual representation because people would be looking at the data in tandem as well. Try to select the appropriate visual for data sets. So for this study, we had a lot of spatial information. So I think every page had maps. So just think about selecting the appropriate visual. Images and icons we've spoken about. I think for public reports, they really do help users to get that extra level of interest and engagement, and visuals can help. Even just having icons for the info and the question mark, they reduce text, which reduces the kind of cognitive load on your users. And it allows them, if you have consistent icons on each page, it allows them really quickly to kind of pinpoint those things as well. So would recommend that. And as mentioned, we use the Flaticons icon library. Just think about, have you considered report performance? People don't like to wait. So for one of our visuals, the client really wanted to include I'll just reset this, the state vegetation map, state vegetation for map. So we said that, okay, we could include it, but it takes a long time to render. So this one here, what we've done here is it's combining, I'll turn off that one. Oh, I think it's frozen it. It's combining lots of different, very complex, I'll just reset this, complex polygons, and we had to bind it all back together with DAX and Power Query. So it's exceeding that cell limit, and it does result in a slow visual. So we've just included a note here that it can take up to 15 seconds to render, so that users know just to wait if they want to see it. There it is. Yeah, so it takes a while. And then mobile responsiveness. So Power BI Publish to Web isn't mobile responsive. It is in the fact if you change your phone to landscape, the report, like the orientation of the website will change, but your visuals won't change. So it's not like if you configure a Power BI report for mobile view, that is not carried across. Security, make sure your data is really public, and managing your solution and managing embed codes. So you can always go back and delete Power BI Published Web embed codes if you don't want it to be public anymore. And just note that whoever publishes the report, whoever's the report owner and creates that embed code, if no one takes over that report before they leave the organization, then the Power BI Published to Web embed link will be broken. So we've had that happen on a recent project. Client left, her Power BI Pro license was removed, and the Published to Web link broke. So they just had to republish it with someone. They could set up a service account so that that wouldn't happen again when someone left. So that's just something to be aware. So Publish to Web, it's a really fantastic, easy, cheap, free option. Take a staged approach with iteration and testing if you're creating a report for the public. Get stakeholder feedback early, especially from your media and comms team if you need to get the tick of approval from them. And most importantly, engage with your report users, because that's where the majority of the effort goes in, making sure that people can understand, that the general public can understand what it is you're presenting in the report and know how to navigate it. So you might need to include a lot of extra prompts and think about your design and layout a bit more there. So that was it from our lessons learned. I'm more than happy to stay on and answer any extra questions, because I do know I did whiz through that at the end. But thank you so much for dialing in. If you did want to watch the session again or check out a summary of the takeaways, we'll publish it on our YouTube channel and do a short write-up on our blog. If you want to share your environmental data analytics story, whether it's complete beginner or something really intermediate or advanced you want to share with the group, we would love to have you. It doesn't have to be a full session, could just be 15 minutes or half an hour, anything like that. Just get in touch with Christian. But thank you so much. It was really good to see everyone on the call. Apologies for not having a session for a while. We were just so snowed under with end of financial year. But now we've got a bit more breathing room. Hopefully we'll get a full calendar for the rest of the year.
You two were amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much for dialing in, Ed.
I didn't do much, Ed, but thank you very much. And yeah, great to have you dial in from Florida, mate. So very nice to meet you. Thank you. And thanks everyone else. Excellent. I'll stop the recording here. As Alice said, we're happy to kick on or stay on for another 5-10. But yeah, thanks everyone for dialing in and the really engaging questions. Naturally.